Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. First of all, welcome to this webinar where we'll talk about Azure technologies in the private cloud. My name is Kristian Nese. I'm MVP for Cloud and Data Center Management and also CTO at a company called Lumigate. And today I also have Rob with me.
So my name is Rob Doucette. I'm the CTO at Savision, and I will complement some of Kristian's content here with some of the things we're doing at Savision.
Okay, so thank you, Rob. We're going to talk about Azure technologies in the private cloud. So hopefully, for you guys who attend this webinar, you have seen, you have downloaded and read the white paper we created, which describes this not only from a business perspective, but also from a technical point of view. So I think I can say that this webinar will be a bit more technical than the white paper. I will also do some demos, so hopefully you will enjoy it. So the agenda for today, I will have a little rant before we actually start. We'll talk about cloud computing, which basically is the essence of everything we do in today's business. Then we're going to head over to the Cloud OS and have a closer look at the Cloud OS and see what that's all about. So we'll have a look at the VMM component of System Center, which is perhaps the most interesting component, to be honest, in the stack. And then we're going to head over to the Azure Pack before Rob takes in. Okay, so if that sounds great, I think we should just start. So this slide is quite short. It's nothing more than this. So before we begin and talk about the cloud and all of that, I just wanted to think of how we have been able to solve all the technical challenges in the industry so far. What we've basically been doing all the way is to abstract everything from the underlying layer. So if you think of the physical service we had, let's say 10 years ago, perhaps 12, that was a bit challenging, okay, both managing and maintaining all those servers. So when virtualization became streamlined and adopted widely by organizations, it helped us a lot. We were able to virtualize the memory, the CPU, the storage, and also the network, which basically was an abstraction, right? And this is what we are doing with cloud computing as well. We are abstracting it even further. So when we work through the webinar today, when we also go through the demos, please have in mind that we're basically abstracting everything so that we end up with services. Okay. So cloud computing. Hopefully, for those of you who are attending this webinar are quite familiar with cloud computing again. But I'm just going to show you the nutshell of cloud computing here. So what is cloud computing? It's basically this. So this is a slide that I've created myself. I'm quite proud of my MS Paint skills, to be honest. So hopefully it's quite clear to see what I'm trying to explain here. And the basics of this explanation come from National Institute of Standards and Technologies. So this is a standard and the definition of cloud computing. I will walk you through the explanation here. So first of all, from the upper left, we have the deployment models. That means we can have a private cloud, we can have a public cloud, and we can also have a community cloud. Now, community cloud is nothing that I will talk too much about in this webinar, but it's basically a cloud that is shared among different kind of organizations, like schools or health or medical, and stuff like that. So what's interesting for us is the private and the public cloud, right? So a combination of resources in the private and the public cloud makes this hybrid cloud. Okay. For the service models, we have infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service, and we have software as a service. Now, these are the three universal accepted service models in the cloud. You may have seen marketing people go ahead and say this is desktop as a service, this is backup as a service, but it really is nothing more than either infrastructure, platform, or software. Okay? And then, of course, last but not least, we have the essential characteristics. We have on-demand self-servicing. It's quite critical for a cloud that for those who are able to, or for those who should consume resources from the cloud, we're able to do it through self-servicing. We also need broad network access so that any device, wherever you are, and whenever you like, you will get access to your application and services. We also have elasticity, that the cloud is able to scale out and in and even up and down in an automated way. Either. We also have resource pooling. So instead of using dedicated resources like a dedicated physical server, dedicated storage, we are now pooling this together, and they are shared across tenants. So multi-tenancy is also important here. And in the end, we have this thing called measured service. So the thing of the cloud is that you should only pay for what you're actually using. So the economic is quite important in this definition as well. So perhaps you have an organization, you're probably not charging all of your employees or tenants or what you call them, or the business units, but at least you're able to see where the actual cost is. So that's also quite important. So I'm going to talk about the deployment models first. So pay attention to the public cloud. A public cloud can be recognized as something that is globally available to many customers and organizations. You don't even have to be a customer. Most of the services are even free, like Facebook, Twitter, Outlook.com, and similar services. We have a massive scale across the entire globe. We have SLA either on each component or the entire service. But SLA is important. You normally see a pay-as-you-go model, although you can pay upfront and use, but we most often see pay-as-you-go. This can, of course, help to reduce cost and the total cost of ownership. So the big players in this game, we have Microsoft, of course, we have Amazon, and Google. These are the major public cloud vendors in the world today. So that was the public cloud. If we move forward to the private cloud, it's also interesting to see what we have. That's a cloud that is dedicated to an organization. It's either locally or externally. That means you can have it, let's say, in your basement, or you have placed it externally at a partner site or whatever. This can, of course, be easier to secure than a public cloud, at least physically. It can lead to faster migration. Since you are responsible for the entire stack, you can manage all the APIs and how you can transfer the data into your cloud. But please remember that we have the same essential characteristic as a public cloud, as cloud computing, the definition of cloud. So it's a lot more than server virtualization, as many people think. So the key difference between a private and a public cloud is the ownership. It's your cloud. And since it's your cloud, you basically should have more control and also perhaps better security for the cloud. But we all know how secure the public cloud might be as well, the data center. So at least that's the key difference. If we have a closer look to the service model, we have first infrastructure as a service. And here you can see that the cloud is responsible for the entire fabric, basically, even the hypervisor, the virtualization layer. So all the compute, storage, networking, and the virtualization layer is managed by the cloud. And you, as a consumer or a customer or tenant, or what you prefer to call it, get access to the operating system layer. So in other words, we are talking about virtual machine in this case. You get a virtual machine, and whatever you do within that virtual machine is your responsibility. Okay, so you can install any application, you can do whatever you want. You have to patch it and maintain it as it was a machine or a physical computer in your environment. If you climb up the stack a bit, you can see that platform as a service that Azure was purely back in the days in 2007, has the cloud got more responsibility. So we are not only managing the fabric and the virtualization layer, we are also maintaining and managing the operating system, the middleware, and even the runtime. Now, as a tenant, we are only responsible for the application and the data. So, to put it in context, platform as a service is idle for developers. So the only thing they need to take care of is the actual code, the thing they develop, and how that application is managing its data. That's platform as a service. And last but not least, we have software as a service. From a technical point of view, I must say that this might be boring at first, but here as a tenant, you're basically consuming a generalized service from the cloud. So the cloud is now responsible for everything. So there's nothing there that you need to configure or maintain or whatever. You're basically just consuming the service from the cloud. So the service model, the summary, we have infrastructure, we have platform, and we have software as a service. Now this leads us to the cloud OS. So hopefully you on the call are quite familiar with the cloud OS already. That's something Microsoft has been pushing for the last 14 months or so, I think. But now and then I get questions from customers that actually ask me, "Hey Kristian, where do you download the cloud OS? Where can I install the cloud OS?" So please remember that it's not an operating system, it's not an application or server application, it's first and foremost a vision. So we're going to have a look at this great vision. So this is a picture of a cloud. We basically divide it into three portions. We have these three clouds, or three data center, or if you prefer to call it. So in the private cloud, we have Windows Server, we have Hyper-V, and we have System Center. These are the building blocks for private cloud implementation. Okay? In the public cloud, we have Microsoft Azure. So from the Microsoft Azure cloud, we can get infrastructure and platform as a service delivery. We also have something called service providers, or Microsoft partners, hosting service providers. They are also able to run Windows Server with Hyper-V and manage their data center with System Center. So in order to bring this one consistent platform that we're going to talk about, we also have a quite important ingredient into this mix, which is Windows Azure Pack. So as you can see, we already have Microsoft Azure, so we're basically moving the Azure technology on-premise, so you can get the same benefits as by consuming services in Microsoft Azure. So we're going to talk more about that later. So to summarize, in this consistent platform, we have a consistency regarding development. A developer can create their application and deploy that application to either a private cloud, service provider cloud, or the public cloud using the same framework and the same user experience. The same goes for the management. We are all familiar with the management capabilities of System Center, but we also have something called the service management API that I will explain. For data, we have SQL across all clouds. Identity, Active Directory identity is the essence here. So this is present in every cloud. And last but not least, Hyper-V is running everything. So for the hyperscale cloud in Microsoft Azure, Microsoft is of course using their own Hyper-V. So let's have a look how we are getting the cloud OS consistent experience. if you take a step back and try to remember the different self-service solutions we have had over the past years, I would say it has been a struggle at best. So we have seen self-service portals for virtual machine manager 2008. We got self-service portal 2.0, and we also got app control. All of these different self-service portals try to solve a quite simple task to deploy virtual machine, infrastructure as a service. Okay? In the meantime, in the Azure cloud, we got this fancy HTML5 subscriber self-service portal communicating to the underlying resource providers through Service Management API, where you can do all these fantastic things. So, luckily for everyone, they thought this was a good idea, so they decided to move these capabilities down to earth to use that description. So, if we see at the technology involved there for the workload portability, we are using the same hypervisor both in Azure as on-premise. So that means you're able to transfer your workload between those clouds. From a technical point of view, I'm not talking about any line migration here, but at least you have the option of moving your virtual hard disk between the clouds. If we have a look at a portal, the self-service portal moves on-premise. So you get the exact same user experience by accessing the Azure Pack tenant portal in a private cloud as we would by accessing Microsoft Azure. Okay? But in order to configure these resource providers that we will have a look at, we need something that we call a provider portal as well. Now, if you as a data center administrator or system administrator or whatever title you have are the one who is responsible for exposing these services to your tenants, you will be doing this from the provider portal. So this provider portal will communicate with the resource provider through the Service Management API, and through the same API, the tenants will get access to their services, which of course is multi-tenant aware. So we have the common management experience through the same API we are using in Azure today. And as you can see, for the cloud-enabled services, we have now website clouds, we have virtual machines, we have SQL services, and more services to come in the Azure Pack in the future as well. So this is about the consistent experience. So if you basically compare Azure to Windows Azure Pack, we have quite a few services in Azure. We have got several new services since I built this slide, actually. And compared to Azure Pack, we have SQL, we have virtual machine, we have websites, we have Active Directory, we have service bus, and virtual network using the GRE. Okay, so for the consistency, you can see that according to Microsoft Vision, which is mobile first, cloud first, we are first developing to the cloud in Azure, and once successful, we are basically making those services available on premise through the Azure Pack as well. So I think this is quite interesting. So, enabling the private cloud with VNM. So hopefully many of you are familiar with VNM as well, but as a short introduction, Virtual Machine Manager is capable of doing a lot more than just, as it says in its name, manage virtual machines. So the VNM component can be placed in the customer environment for the private cloud and also in the service provider cloud. And it will basically transform the data center for you. So the thing here is that this single console is able to manage your entire data center. Or if we have a look at the hypervisors, we can manage Hyper-V in 2012, 2012 R2, and 2008 R2. And also VMware and C6 Server. So all the three major hypervisors can be managed by Hyper-V. Also, this is where you will model and design and deploy your networking fabric together with storage. When it comes to storage, we can handle file storage with SMB Trio, which is a very interesting topic. We can use, of course, block-based storage like private channel or unstructured. So from this component, we can configure and deploy the entire data center on the cloud. So we pool those resources together. Remember, from the cloud characteristic, we have resource pooling. We abstract those resources into a cloud and delegate capacity to Azure. And in this cloud, we are able to deploy standardized services created by the service provider or the private cloud administrator. So this is the essence of the private cloud using virtual machine. So that was a short intro. I will show you more in the demo in a bit. So Azure Pack is the key. Just to show you how Azure Pack can scale and meet your business requirements according to high availability and scalability. I want to show you a map of how Azure Pack should be deployed in production environment. So ideally, you either have a SQL Server cluster or availability group for your databases. We can split the Azure Pack components into two parts. We have the one that we call for internet-facing part. If you plan to offer Azure services to tenants outside of your network, the tenant portal, the authentication site, and also the public API need to be available on the internet. Okay? And then we have the high privilege services, which should be located either in VMset or behind the firewall. I will explain. So, the high privilege services, the admin portal, the admin API, where you as an administrator will go to the service management API and configure the resource provider. For the resource provider to the right there is service bus, we have website, we have service provider foundation, DNM, and operation manager, all from System Center. We are connecting these providers both to the admin API as an administrator, and you expose capabilities from those resource providers to the tenant through the tenant public API, which all goes through the same API. Also interesting to note that you're able to federate and use ADFS in this mix. So instead of using the inbox tenant authentication site, you can leverage the Active Directory as well. You should increase the number of servers to average performance. That's important. So please note that all the server roles, all the components of Azure Pack, both the tenant side, the APIs, and the authentication sites, they are all stateless. That means you can place them behind a load balancer state, which of course is the next step there. Scale out all nodes for high availability. So this is according to best practice. It's something that is smart to do in a production environment. So what we're basically going to do now is to work through this architecture bit. So before we start, I just want to explain a bit around management SAM. Now this is a term that is often used by Microsoft. So management SAM is basically a VMM management server infrastructure. So in VMM you can have several scale units, and a scale unit can be a Hyper-V host or virtualization host like VMware or Secret Cell server. You can have different kind of storage for the storage scale units, and the same goes for networking. We abstract those physical resources into the cloud that you are associating with the SPF server, which is a multi-tenant REST OData API. I will explain more about SPF in a bit. And we connect the service management API to the SPF endpoint, and then we can create this awesome cloud using the management portal as an administrator and expose the services to a hosting plan in Azure Pack. So shortly around Service Provider Foundation, this is something that was introduced with Service Pack 1 for System Center. So we needed a way to actually leverage all the goodies that came in Hyper-V and Windows Server 2012, like network virtualization and all the scalability regarding the hardware for the virtual machine and the host, and all the features, of course. So people demanded to use those capabilities into a custom self-service portal. So that's basically what it is. It creates a web service, a REST API to virtual machine managers, so you can create your own custom portal and access those capabilities. Now, Azure Pack is an example of that on how to leverage Service Provider Foundation. So this is, if you haven't heard of Service Provider Foundation before, it's located on the orchestrator media. So you need to have the orchestrator setup. And when you launch the setup, you will have an option of installing Service Provider Foundation. But you don't need the entire orchestrator. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at the fabric in VMM, create the cloud. We will show you the Service Management API, how it's connected to SPF, and we register the VMM server, and offer plan to cloud with the cloud to tenancies. And these tenants can subscribe to plan and create virtual machines. So some of the technologies involved here, I'll describe this shortly in a white paper. The gallery items is where you can offer sophisticated services to your users. So instead of just offer virtual machines, which is based on virtual machine templates, you can climb up the stack and actually deliver cool server applications. We're also using remote console, so you can get access to your virtual machine without network connectivity. And of course, we are using network virtualization to deliver a complete infrastructure as a service cloud. So with that, I'm going to jump on to the demo. So welcome to my second home. This is Virtual Machine Manager. So as explained during the slides, this is where we actually are able to build, deploy, and configure our entire data center. Through standard-based management, which is the approach from Microsoft, we can add different kind of storage to using standards. In this case, I'm using block-based storage. You can also have file servers. You are modeling and deploying your network for your Hyper-V host and infrastructure service to VMM. And this is also where you implement network virtualization. So by showing you the host, this is a single management stamp. I have quite a few hosts. We have a host group for my research and development. We also have some legacy hosts. We also have a host for the gateways, the virtualization host gateways. And we also have dedicated hosts for management and even for disaster recovery. Now, once you're all satisfied with Fabric, the physical building blocks, you can abstract those into a cloud that you can create here in VMM. I've already created this cloud, so let's have a look at it. Of course, you need a name. The resources, you select the host group, which should contain virtualization hosts for running your workload. For the network, I've only added the logical network that is enabled for network virtualization. So I'm making that network available in the cloud so you can abstract the networks created on that network. For storage, I'm using silver, bronze, commodity, and remote storage. So these are all storage specifications that I'm abstracting into the cloud and making available. And also, the tenants need some building blocks, and they will find the resources in the available libraries here. So I have now basically used the physical hardware I have in my Fabric. I have abstracted portions of that hardware into a cloud. I'm now ready to take this further using the Azure Pack. So, as you can see from the URL, I've logged into something called Admin Pack. So this is the name of the admin portal in this environment. So that means as an administrator, I've logged in here, and I'm now able to configure the resource providers. Now, so this is starting to become interesting. So if you have a look at the VM cloud, you can see that the Azure Pack API is registered with System-Centric Service Provider Foundation. So here is the URL. So by connecting to the Service Provider Foundation, I was able to add my virtual machine manager server, or management plan, if you like to call it that. So if we extend the VMM server, you can see that all these three clouds are exposed here in Azure Pack. So going back to the VMM console, you can see that you'll find the same clouds here. So obviously, this looks good. Now, the plan now is to offer capabilities of this from this cloud to my tenants. And I just talk shortly about gallery items as well. Now, these are some of the gallery items my tenants will be able to deploy and consume. So we can deploy a link server, we can deploy SharePoint, web server, and also domain controller together with SQL. So all this can be configured as a tenant. Now, once this is all good, you can have a look at the plan. And the plan I've created for this session is a plan called the MVP plan. Now, this plan contains several services. So based on the available resource providers you have, you can add it to a plan and make it available. So if we have a look at the virtual machine cloud, we can see that we are connected to the management server or VMM and using the service provider cloud that I have created. Here you can also specify usage limit. You can make networks, hardware profiles, together with templates, gallery items available, and the additional settings each user should be able to perform on this cloud. So I will now log in as a tenant. So as you can see from the URL, I'm now accessing cloud.system-centric365. So as a tenant, I have this experience. As an administrator, I have basically the same user experience. You can see here from the left, I have access to my resource providers as an administrator, but as a tenant, I have only access to the services I have deployed. So I have created virtualized networks. As a tenant, I'm able to create site-to-site VPN from this cloud to my on-premise environment. I can create NAT rules. So there I created a simple rule that will let you have RDP access into a virtual machine. I also have quite a few virtual machines running this cloud. And the last thing I'd like to show you here now is how you can deploy sophisticated services using Azure Pack. So we're going to use virtual machine role, which is based on the gallery item I showed you earlier. And from the gallery, I will select a new domain controller. By clicking next, I will assign this service a name. And look at the user experience here. It's quite easy, as I don't need to be a ninja in server administration to be able to do this. I just need to fill in the password, the network, select the network, the name of the computer, and also just create the Active Directory domain name. and click OK. Now this will go ahead and deploy this virtual machine role into my cloud. It's provisioning, so by moving back to VMM, which is basically aggregating all of this, you can see the job view that we are now adding a VM role resource. You can see the resource name is Savision as I was typing, and you can see that the owner is the tenant, which is me. Now this VM role will be deployed to the service provider cloud that I showed you earlier. So here it is, creating the service provider cloud, and this is the tenant. So this is a complete multi-tenant solution for delivering infrastructure as a service. Okay, so going back to the slide and the summary before Rob will continue. If you plan to use Azure Pack, you need to know what you are actually going to solve. You have to deploy Azure Pack to meet the business requirements. You will have to look at the resource providers to see what's most appropriate for you. If you're interested in the VM Cloud resource provider, you need to know that Azure Pack is relying on Windows Server and the System Center license for this. You could use gallery items to extend service offerings. We saw how easy it was to deploy a domain controller, a simple key takes 2 to 4 days, and you're done. You can also use the remote desktop gateway and NVGRE to create this awesome infrastructure as a service private cloud. So with that, I think I'm going to handle it over to Rob.
Thank you very much, Kristian. So I want to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes or so just talking about some of the solutions available from Savision that benefit some of the things that Kristian was referring to, specifically, at least in terms of what we offer today, benefits to the private cloud, and I'll talk a little bit about where we might be headed in the future that will benefit public cloud, specifically Windows Azure Pack. So the first project I want to talk about is Cloud Reporter. And to give some background information on Cloud Reporter, we were approached by Microsoft concerning a problem with a number of their customers, but specifically with a very large financial services company in the U.S. And they were moving from VMware to Hyper-V, and they saw a gap in some of the capabilities of the Microsoft private cloud compared to what they were used to from the VMware ecosystem. And specifically, this gap was around predictive capacity planning, right sizing, and the ability to create what-if scenarios. So we worked very closely with both Microsoft and this financial services company to define a set of requirements, how we could integrate the System Center in a very native way, and provide a set of reports that would allow them to get the same functionality that they were used to from VMware. And that's kind of where Cloud Reporter came about. And so in terms of a message, we're focused completely on the System Center space, and we provide an auditing, predictive capacity planning, and optimization solution for Hyper-V. And I'll jump into some of the benefits here, where really what we're able to help you with is preventing unplanned downtime, first and foremost, where it's critical to know when resources in your virtual environment are about to be exhausted. So, for example, we can look at historical data, do some analysis, and then predict into the future based on that historical data, when are you going to run out of memory, when are you going to saturate the processors, and so forth. And so being able to reveal these capacity issues is pretty important, because in some or many larger companies, there is some time needed to order standardized hardware, get that set up, configured, installed, and so forth. So telling someone that they have a capacity issue in the next couple of days typically is not good enough. You know, the more notice, the better. And of course, we want to help people avoid these capacity issues in the first place. So when we do see that there's a resource exhaustion event coming up, we also have a set of reports that help you identify opportunities to make better use of the resources that you already have. So the answer isn't always just go buy more hardware. Sometimes you can take a look at right-sizing your virtual machine, perhaps in a self-service environment, as Kristian was referring to earlier. Users are granted the ability to very easily create virtual machines in the environment as they need to, but is somebody really keeping track of those virtual machines and making sure that they're removed, destroyed, shut down, etc., when they're no longer used? So those are the kinds of things that we can help look at, provide some summaries as to what you can solve if you follow our recommendations. And then finally, since we've really focused on tight native integration with System Center, that's also given us the ability to deploy the product very quickly. So essentially the product is a management pack that you need to import. We leverage data that's already been collected in SQL data warehouses. We add our own data as well, but it leverages the operations manager data warehouse that's already deployed, integrates with DMM, and then provides a set of reports through the reporting services section within Operations Manager to deliver these reports. And so I have a few examples here that I'd like to show you. So the first is our cluster forecast dashboard. And this is the first, sort of the top-level requirement that this financial services company that I referred to needed. And so they needed a report that showed them all the clusters and then a quarter-by-quarter forecast going into the future, showing the health of those clusters with respect to capacity. So again, based on looking at the historical performance and resource allocation in those clusters, we're able to then project into the future the health of those clusters. So we see if the virtual machines are really being created often on, for instance, probably one of the Los Angeles clusters in this example. We can see that we're going to quickly run out of resources. And from here, we can hover over, get more information about the problem, drill into that cluster, and start really analyzing what opportunities exist within that cluster to make better use of the resources that are already there. One other key point that was a requirement here is, so it's one thing to be able to say, okay, given historical data, resource allocations, and so forth, and we can predict into the future, but oftentimes there's known events coming up into the future that need to be taken into consideration. So, for example, maybe we know that next month there's a SharePoint farm being rolled out, and that's going to be a set of new virtual machines, or perhaps we're decommissioning some hosts, or performing some upgrades to some of our hosts. These things need to be taken into consideration to provide an accurate forecast. So with Cloud Reporter, we also provide a native dashboard within Operations Manager where a user can go, define scenarios and events that represent these types of things that need to be taken into consideration when creating a forecast. And then one or more of these scenarios, as we call them, can be selected to be included in the report. So I can say, okay, we'll include my SharePoint farm rollout, and I'm going to decommission some hosts, and what does that look like? And then maybe I want to check, okay, well, what if I upgraded the host and run the report and sort of get to the state where I know that I'm in a healthy state in my clusters for the near future. And then again, as I mentioned, when we do identify that there are issues or at least upcoming capacity problems, the easy answer is to buy more hardware, but that of course is not the always the most sensible solution. So we have some reports here that will go through and provide you opportunities to perhaps make better use of the resources you already have. So the first one we have here is our idle virtual machine report. So again, back to one of the key components of a private cloud being self-service capabilities. We see this a lot with many of our customers where end users in the organization are able to create virtual machines quite easily. But that also means that it makes it quite easy to forget about those virtual machines as well. So we will analyze the environment and historical data and look for signs of low activity. So, for example, we've identified some virtual machines here that have shown very low CPU utilization, disk network utilization as well. And then and that's all sort of provided as parameters in the report. You can provide your own thresholds that you want to override from what we provide. And then we get a list here of virtual machines that meet those criteria that an administrator can take a look at and decide, are these machines still being used? Another key part of the optimization process is right-sizing. So here the first report I'm showing is a memory right-sizing report. We provide a summary of the overall result if you were to implement the changes that we present. And then we provide a breakdown by cluster, by host, and of course by virtual machine that shows over time what the demand, in this case memory, has been for these virtual machines, what has been allocated, and then our recommendation on memory to remove or add to the virtual machine to maintain optimal performance. And sorry, one thing I'll point out as well is we also do CPU right sizing. So we can calculate the specific processor load given on a host by a particular virtual machine. Using that and the virtual processors that have been allocated to it, we can actually come up with specific recommendations for every virtual machine on how many virtual processors you should allocate to a virtual machine also to maintain performance. So if we see that you've allocated 4 or 8 virtual processors to a machine that really doesn't need them, we can not only tell you that you've over-allocated, but also give you a specific recommendation that hey, maybe you should just allocate 1 or 2 to this virtual machine. And on the converse, do the same thing where you've allocated 1 virtual processor to a machine that's quite busy. We won't just say, yeah, you need more processing power, but we can actually give you a specific recommendation on how many virtual processors you should allocate. One of the, I guess you could consider a simplified case from within the identifying idle virtual machines is powered off virtual machines. So in this case, the user or the administrator was nice enough to turn off the virtual machine so it's not consuming memory and CPU cycles, but it's still sitting on storage somewhere. And for all we know, this could be sitting on top tier or high classification of storage. So here we'll identify the virtual machines that are not running. How long have they been powered off? So here I've used an example of virtual machines that haven't been running for about a year. It's a pretty good chance that these virtual machines are not critical and can either be moved to a lower classification of storage or perhaps just removed from the environment altogether. So the other product that I want to mention is Cloud Advisor. And this is a specific VMM add-in that we added. So when Microsoft released the 2012 SC1 release early last year, we took advantage of the capabilities available to extend the user interface in the VMM console, and we provided an add-in that will analyze the Hyper-V environment and provide a set of tuning tips and tricks in terms of how to maximize your efficiency within Hyper-V. So some of the example tips we have, as you can see here, again, we'll look at some overlap with Cloud Reporter. So, for example, identifying virtual machines that appear to be no longer used, predicting when memory will be consumed, looking at guest services. We'll take a look at dynamic memory, if it's turned on. What sort of boundaries have you put on dynamic memory, and do they make sense based on what the virtual machine has been asking for? And we also look at the cluster shared volume. So if you do run out of disk space on cluster shared volume, all the virtual machines on that CSV will go into a pause state, and that's of course something you would like to avoid. So we can identify that situation, but not only that, we'll show you a list of the virtual machines that will be impacted if you do not solve this quickly, and then finally we'll provide you a detailed recommendation outlining specific virtual machines that can be moved to another cluster shared volume that has adequate capacity to run those virtual machines. So very, very clear steps on how you can solve the problem. I'll point out that one of the largest adopters we've had with this product is the Microsoft field teams. So as they deploy Hyper-V proof of concept, we see Cloud Advisor being frequently used to run against the environment, do a sanity check to make sure they haven't missed anything in terms of configuring dynamic memory, having guest services, naming conventions, those types of things are all in line so that they can leave the customer with a really clean content. And probably the best thing about the product is that it's absolutely free. So there's no time trials, there's no limitations on the host, that type of thing. It's 100% free. So I really encourage you, if you are using VMM to manage a Hyper-V environment, I would encourage you to try it out and let us know what you think. We're always adding new tips and tricks in here based on what we hear from our customers and from Microsoft, so we'd love to hear from you. And you may be wondering, I've been talking a lot about specifically Hyper-V, what our story is for VMware. We do get asked this a lot, even customers who have bought into Hyper-V, maybe they're under a migration today. The reality is that there's still going to be some degree of VMware in the environment, and that needs to be managed as well. So that'll be something that we will be officially announcing at TechEd Barcelona in October later this year, where Cloud Reporter and Cloud Advisor will both support VMware for all the types of features that I just mentioned and walked you through. So that'll be something to look forward to. If you have looked at this product in the past and you were disappointed with not seeing support for VMware, that's something that you'll see very soon. And just a quick screenshot of what this looks like inside the VMM console, showing the list of tips. And then, of course, if you click on a tip, as I mentioned, you can get a very detailed description, giving you an idea of how we came to the conclusion of presenting this tip to you. And then, of course, providing a recommendation on actions to take from there. In terms of more information, just to wrap up here, I encourage you to visit our respective websites at lumigate.com and Savision.com. Of course, I would also recommend you to check out Kristian's blog. You can see the link here. As well, if you'd like to learn more about Cloud Reporter or Cloud Advisor, we do have an online demo of Cloud Reporter, so you can take a look at sample reports without having to install anything in your environment. It is an easy install as well if you want to try it out in your own environment, but we do provide a hosted online environment so you can kind of play around with it and see what it looks like. As I mentioned, of course, Cloud Advisor is free. We really encourage you to download and try it out. And then we have some addresses here if you need to get in contact with us for more information, either sales@savision.com or partners@savision.com. We'd be more than happy to help you with any questions you have or any problems we can help you try and solve. So with that, we have a few minutes left here, and I'd like to reserve these few minutes to see if we have any questions from the audience that we can that Kristian and I can answer. So if you can just either put it in the chat window or in the Q&A window, that would be excellent. All right, well, we'll wrap up then. Thank you very much for everyone who took the time of the day to attend and listen to us today. And of course, a big thank you to Kristian for his great presentation on Azure technologies in the private cloud. And we hope to hear from you guys on how we can help you in the future. Thanks again, everyone.
Bye.